Welcome back, dear viewers. Today, we have an intriguing tale that will keep you on the edge of your seats. It's a story about an overlooked old man and a gatekeeper, whose simple misunderstanding leads to an unforgettable event in a bustling city. The annual Professional Excellence Conference is about to unfold at the Grand Convention Center. The air is electrically charged with excitement as professionals from various sectors gather to learn from industry leaders and innovators. Among them is Mike, a diligent security guard known for his strict adherence to protocol. He often considered himself the backbone of the event, ensuring everything ran smoothly, as attendees flutter past him, adjusting their suits and glancing eagerly at their schedules. Mike stands at his post, scanning badges and managing the crowd with a stern expression. He believes that order is paramount, and it is his duty to maintain it. With every glance, he focuses on enforcing rules without questioning their purpose. But just a few steps away, the atmosphere buzzes louder as eager participants share ideas and anticipate the wisdom to be shared. Suddenly, an elderly man named Mr. Thompson appears in the periphery. Dressed in a simple, worn-out suit, he carries an old leather briefcase that seems to hold countless untold stories. He walks slowly, taking in the grandeur of the venue. Yet there's a glimmer of determination in his eyes. When Mr. Thompson reaches the entrance, he instinctively straightens his back, ready to introduce himself as the speaker. But Mike, absorbed in the rhythmic routine of badge checks, almost doesn't see him. The moment he steps forward, the security guard's authoritative stance cuts through the air. "Excuse me, sir? May I see your identification?" Mike demands, not realizing who he is confronting. What was meant to be a smooth entry quickly takes a halt, setting the stage for an unexpected clash between assumptions and reality. Questions loom in the air. Is this unassuming elderly gentleman what he claims to be? What stories lie behind his gentle demeanor? And will the true meaning of respect and recognition unfold amidst the rigidity of role? Stay tuned as the story progresses, and we discover how this seemingly simple encounter will unravel into something profound, impacting everyone present. The vast conference center stood tall and proud, its polished glass facade reflecting the golden hues of the evening sun, welcoming a tidal wave of eager minds ready to gather insights and inspiration. Inside, the air buzzed with palpable excitement as attendees congregated in small groups, exchanging ideas and thoughts about the notable speakers they were about to hear. The atmosphere was electric, and every corner of the venue seemed alive with discussions about innovation, discovery, and the future. Mike, the dedicated security guard, patrolled the entrance with a stern expression, his eyes flickering between the flowing crowd and the large digital screens showcasing the names of the presenters. To him, this event was not just a gathering but a well-orchestrated mechanism that required precise regulation. Adhering to the rules was not just a duty, it was a shield that protected the sanctity of the event. He believed that maintaining order was essential for the success of such a grand occasion. The crowd was diverse, filled with seasoned professionals, enthusiastic students, and curious onlookers, each person with their aspirations and dreams tangled in the air. Laughter and chatter spilled over as the doors to the main hall swung open. Attendees rushed in, eager for prime seating, their excitement overshadowing the looming organization of the event. This was a moment of hope, a stepping stone toward achieving their ambitions. As the minutes ticked by, Mike remained focused on his task, His broad shoulders slumped slightly with the weight of responsibility. But he was resolute. No one uncredentialed would bypass him today. Little did he know that his stringent adherence to protocol was about to be put to the test. Meanwhile, perched on a nearby bench outside the venue sat Mr. Thompson, the old man in the worn-out suit. He observed the vibrant scene unfolding before him, his heart filled with anticipation tempered by the unease of the unexpected chaos in his mind. His briefcase, a relic of his storied past, seemed almost to pulse with unspoken words and wisdom. A contrast to the modern, sleek environment surrounding him. As the last remnants of daylight faded, an array of speakers and panelists entered the venue, their presence exhilarating to the audience. The buzz reached a crescendo, each name celebrated with applause, each introduction a promise of knowledge and inspiration. Yet, among the well-known figures were many individuals, overlooked and unseen, including one who held stories within him that could illuminate minds and transform lives. The scene was set for an unforgettable convergence of perspectives. And little did anyone suspect that fate had a lesson waiting to unfold amidst the walls of grandeur. One that began with a simple encounter at the gate, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the conference center in hues of gold and amber. A wave of anticipation swept through the crowd. Attendees gathered in clusters, animatedly discussing the key insights they hoped to glean from the distinguished speakers. Underneath a grand archway, overflowing with banners celebrating innovation and achievement, a stark contrast lurked just outside. Mr. Thompson shuffled towards the venue, his eyes gleaming with a blend of excitement and nervousness. The bustling atmosphere of young professionals and confident leaders sharpened his awareness of how long it had been since he had addressed an audience, let alone one so vibrant. Dressed in a simple, worn-out grey suit, he carried an old leather briefcase, its weathered exterior suggesting countless stories and experiences. To most, he might have looked like another forgettable passerby. However, within him resided a reservoir of wisdom, a testament to a life rich with lessons learned. As he approached the entrance, Mike, the gatekeeper, stood post, embodying the epitome of authority and vigilance. With his arms crossed rigidly and a frown etched on his forehead, he scanned the incoming crowd with keen intensity. To Mike, rules were the backbone of order. Everything fell into place when one simply adhered to protocol. He had seen many faces, but this one, wrinkled and kind, was yet another reminder of the formidable responsibility he held. "Excuse me," Mr. Thompson said softly, a hint of anticipation quivering in his voice. "I'm here to speak at the conference." His words, though spoken with confidence, carried the fragility of someone who had been overlooked too many times. Mike raised his eyebrows skeptically, eyes narrowing as he stood firm in his position. "Do you have your badge?" he questioned, unwavering and authoritative. Mr. Thompson's demeanor shifted, for a fleeting moment. The warmth in his smile faltered, replaced with uncertainty. "I don't have a badge with me. But I assure you I'm the keynote speaker," he insisted, his voice steady but tinged with a sense of urgency. The young security guard, however, shook his head dismissively. "No badge. No entry. It's against the rules," ignoring the stir of murmurs from the now curious crowd. Mike remained at his post, focusing on preserving the event's integrity rather than the stories behind the faces. As the standoff extended, a sense of injustice hung thick in the air. Those around them began to wonder about the man whose voice was seemingly being silenced. with a heart wanting to advocate for the underdog. Emily, a young journalist, stood nearby, her intrigued gaze fixed on the scene. She felt compelled to intervene, sensing that beneath the tension lay a richer narrative. The world outside the conference, with all its noise, briefly faded away, leaving only the moment where determination met duty, their fates entwined in this singular yet profound intersection of life, misunderstanding, and potential, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the bustling conference center. The air crackled with anticipation. Attendees scurried about, each one eager to engage with the groundbreaking ideas set to unfold within the next few moments. In this atmosphere of excitement, however, a significant and unexpected standoff was brewing just outside the entrance. Mr. Thompson stood composed in front of Mike, the security guard, whose posture remained rigid and vigilant. Beneath his stern demeanor lay an unwavering commitment to his duty. But in this moment, he could not see past the badge he wore. "Excuse me, sir?" Mike said firmly, crossing his arms. "I need to see your identification." The elderly man smiled, his eyes twinkling with a blend of wisdom and kindness that contrasted starkly with Mike's hardened expression. "I assure you, young man, I am here to speak at the conference. My name is Mr. Thompson, and I have been invited as the keynote speaker," he replied calmly, emphasizing each word with the weight of experience. Mike's gaze narrowed. Skepticism etched across his brow. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you in without proper identification. You need to follow the process, just like everyone else." He believed he was upholding the integrity of the event. Yet in his mind, he had already dismissed the man standing before him. His words lost in the assurance of bureaucracy. An uncomfortable silence enveloped the scene, gathering the collective attention of those waiting in line. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd, questions laced with disbelief and curiosity. Had they just stumbled upon something significant? Did the old man truly belong here? Or was he merely an imposter? Mr. Thompson remained steady, the kindness in his eyes now mingled with the pain of being misjudged. "I understand your position, but sometimes appearances can be misleading," he countered gently, his voice resonating with an unexpected strength. "I have a story to share that could inspire those within. It would be a shame to let my age and attire cloud your judgment." Despite his gracious words, Mike held steadfast, the urgency of his role overshadowing the plea wrapped in compassion. The presence of authority had filled him with conviction. But in the back of his mind, doubt began to flutter. What if this man truly was who he claimed to be? As tension simmered, the crowd began to form a circle, and murmurs turned into hushed conversations, probing at the heart of the situation. Mr. Thompson, sensing the growing attention, decided to stand tall, even as he faced the daunting barrier that Mike had created. The very nature of respect was now at stake, both for himself and for the people waiting to hear his voice. In that moment, Mike finally noticed the collective gaze of the crowd, curiosity turning into unease. He could feel their judgment as they observed this discord. Suddenly, his responsibility felt heavier than before. A nagging question pulsed at the back of his mind: had he truly made the right decision? As he wrestled with the situation, the buzzing anticipation around them transformed into a poignant reminder of the weight of responsibility, humility, and the stories that often go unheard. Would he let this moment slip away? Or would he action the wisdom that lay just beneath the surface of their encounter? The standoff lingered, suspended in the air, as both men stood firm, each representing a different narrative in this unfolding story, a narrative that was now poised to change not only their lives but also the very fabric of the evening ahead. As the whispers grew louder among the attendees, Emily, a young journalist with a passion for human interest stories, felt a fire ignite within her. She had been quietly observing the confrontation between Mr. Thompson and Mike, the security guard. The injustice unfolding before her was unacceptable, and she couldn't stand idly by. The crowd around her shifted uncomfortably, clearly torn between wanting to intervene and remaining passive observers. But Emily, fueled by her belief in the power of stories and empathy, stepped forward. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice cutting through the murmurs, drawing the attention of both Mike and the growing crowd. The guard looked perplexed, briefly glancing at her before returning his gaze to Mr. Thompson, who stood quietly, his dignity intact despite the humiliation he faced. "This man is claiming to be our keynote speaker. He deserves your respect, just like anyone else in this room." Emily's heart raced, knowing the weight of her words held the potential to shift the atmosphere entirely. Mike inhaled sharply, startled by her sudden outburst. He responded defensively. "I'm just doing my job. I need to ensure that everyone showing up is authorized to enter." But Emily pressed on, eyes blazing with determination. "But what if your job is blinding you to the truth? You don't recognize who he is, do you?" The onlookers found themselves captivated by Emily's fearless stance. She continued, her voice unwavering. "Mr. Thompson has dedicated his life to shaping ideas, inspiring generations with his work. How can we deny him the chance to share his voice today?" In front of all of us, a silence fell over the crowd as her words began to resonate. People exchanged glances, many nodding in agreement. The truth of the situation began to dawn on them. They finally acknowledged the moral weight of Emily's argument, just as she was losing faith that Mike would relent. Professor Jenkins, a respected figure in their field, emerged from the sidelines. He had been witnessing the confrontation with growing concern. "What's happening here?" he asked, stepping closer to the group. Upon recognizing Mr. Thompson, Jenkins' expression shifted from confusion to shock. "Wait. You're Mr. Thompson, aren't you? The keynote speaker we've all been eagerly awaiting." The crowd gasped collectively, realization washing over them like a wave. Mike's previous bravado faltered as he now faced the validation of Emily's claims. "I didn't know," he stammered, the color draining from his face. Desperation for redemption lingered in his tone as he approached the elderly man, full of remorse. In that moment, the atmosphere transformed, not just for Mike, but for everyone present. What started as a confrontation had morphed into an opportunity for understanding and growth. Emily's bravery became the catalyst for a new narrative, highlighting the importance of listening, respecting others, and recognizing the extraordinary within even the most unassuming individuals. The crowd shifted their focus to Mr. Thompson, their hearts now open, ready to embrace the lessons he was about to share. As the scene transformed, so too did the outlook of everyone involved, setting the stage for an unforgettable experience. As the murmurs of confusion filled the air around the entrance, Emily, a young journalist with a passion for truth, sensed an opportunity to make a difference. With her camera hanging around her neck and notebook in hand, she observed Mike's rigid demeanor contrasted against Mr. Thompson's calm, yet firm presence. She could see that this was not just any altercation, it was a pivotal moment that revealed the human experience, a blend of authority, vulnerability, and misunderstanding. Determined to intervene, Emily stepped forward, her heart racing. As she approached the gate, she called out to Mike. "Wait. You can't just dismiss him like that. What if he really is the speaker?" She could feel the weight of the crowd's gaze on her, sensing their collective curiosity and hope for justice. Mike, caught momentarily off guard, glanced up at her with skepticism. "He doesn't have the proper identification," he replied, his voice laced with authority. "I have a responsibility to ensure that only legitimate individuals enter. This is a serious event." Yet, Emily was not one to back down easily. "And who is to say what legitimate looks like?" she retorted, her voice rising slightly. "Sometimes it's the people who appear unassuming that have the most wisdom to share. Just look at him. He's not here just as an attendee. What if he has a message we need to hear?" At that moment, Professor Jenkins, a well-respected figure in the industry, wandered over after hearing the commotion. His sharp eyes immediately spotted Mr. Thompson's wrinkled hands and the glint of intelligence in his eyes. "What's going on here?" he inquired, his tone firm but curious. Emily wasted no time in explaining. "This man is claiming to be our speaker, Professor. He was just denied entry by the guard because he lacked a badge. I believe he has valuable insights that could benefit everyone in there." Jenkins paused, his brow furrowing. "Mr. Thompson?" he asked, turning toward the elderly gentleman. A look of recognition spread across his face. "Is that really you, Mr. Thompson?" Emboldened by Emily's stand and the professor's attention, responded quietly. "Yes. I'm here to share my thoughts on compassion and understanding in our lives, especially in challenging times." There was a tangible shift in energy, an air of respect and curiosity enveloped the small group. The professor stepped closer, his voice filled with authority. "Mike, this is the Mr. Thompson I've been eager to hear from today. He has contributed extensively to our field. Let him pass." With a mix of disbelief and embarrassment, Mike's expression softened. He stumbled over his words, realizing the importance of his mistake. "I'm so sorry, sir," he said sincerely, stepping aside to let Mr. Thompson through. "Please, go on in." In that moment, the door to understanding swung wide open. Not just for Mr. Thompson, but for everyone in attendance. Little did they know, the lessons about to unfold would resonate far beyond the confines of the conference hall. As Mr. Thompson stands before the entrance, the world outside fades into a faint murmur. Inside the grand conference hall, the anticipation is thickening. Yet no one seems to be aware of the small drama unfolding at the doors. Mike, the security guard, feels a nervous energy flow through him as whispers of discontent ripple among the attendees. When Professor Jenkins steps forward, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. The crowd watches in astonishment as this well-respected figure, known for his contributions to the field, strides confidently towards them. His beard glimmers with wisdom, and the kindness in his eyes seems to radiate a calming presence. The crowd instinctively recognizes that he has the power to diffuse the tension. "Mike," he calls out, his voice steady yet urgent. "Let him through. This is Mr. Thompson, our keynote speaker tonight. We've all been waiting for him." A silence engulfs the scene, heavy with disbelief. Mike's mind races. He feels exposed. Like a spotlight has just flickered on him, illuminating his error for all to see. The dismissal from earlier plays in a loop in his thoughts. A reminder of the boundaries he failed to respect. Suddenly, the polarizing roles of authority and wisdom converge. Mike's heart sinks. A wave of humiliation washing over him. I had no idea. He stumbles, the words catching in his throat. He glances at Mr. Thompson, hoping to catch his eye, but instead finds only the gentle resolve of the older man's gaze. With a deep breath, Mike steps aside, his arm extending in a gesture of apology. I'm truly sorry, Mr. Thompson. Please, go ahead. The elderly gentleman nods appreciatively, his warm smile revealing no trace of anger or resentment. Thank you, young man. We all make mistakes, he replies, the wisdom in his words piercing through the tension hanging in the air. As Mr. Thompson walks past him and into the hall, Mike is surprised by the profound shift within himself. He can feel the eyes of the audience now on him. The experiences of misjudgment and enlightenment are embedding deep within his consciousness. Once on stage, Mr. Thompson commands the attention of the hall, his presence transforming from that of a dismissed visitor to an esteemed figure. He takes the microphone, and in that moment, the energy in the room reaches a new height. His stories unfold, filled with lessons of his past, each one neatly crafted from the thread of struggle, growth, and resilience. As he shares his journey through triumphs and trials, the audience is mesmerized, captivated not just by his experiences but by the raw honesty that saturates his words. Mike stands at the back of the auditorium, witnessing the transformative power of storytelling in action. He realizes this moment is not merely an event, it is a beautiful reminder of the dignity inherent in every individual. In that instant, he appreciates that everyone, no matter their appearance or age, brings something valuable to the table, an insight shaped by lived experience. As Mr. Thompson's narrative swells with joy and sorrow, Mike vows never to overlook anyone again. In the interconnectedness of their stories, he understands that everyone's path has the potential to inspire. And for the first time that evening, he begins to recognize the extraordinary woven within the ordinary. Through this newfound understanding, the gates of wisdom have indeed opened, not just the metaphorical ones surrounding the conference hall, but those within Mike's heart. As Mr. Thompson stepped onto the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. From the back of the room, Emily could see the tension in Mike's shoulders relax. He was no longer acting as the sentinel of order but rather a witness to something extraordinary. Mr. Thompson, despite his frail appearance, exuded a quiet confidence that captivated everyone in the room. Adjusting his glasses, Mr. Thompson scanned the audience, his sharp, blue eyes sparkling with life. He began his speech not with a grand statement, but with a story from his own childhood. He described a bustling neighborhood filled with diverse families, each with tales of struggle and triumph. His voice trembled slightly with emotion, as he spoke of his mother, a single parent who worked long hours to provide for him and his siblings. The diligent sacrifices she made were palpable in his words, painting a vivid picture that drew the audience into his past. I grew up witnessing the power of community, he said, leaning into the microphone. In our little neighborhood, we didn't have much, but what we had was each other. We celebrated together, grieved together, and above all, we supported one another. As he continued, Mr. Thompson's stories became more than just personal anecdotes, they were reflections on the human experience. He spoke of an old neighbor who would offer wise advice while tending to his garden, and how those simple interactions shaped his understanding of compassion and empathy. The audience hung on to his every word, laughter bubbling up in response to his wit and nods of agreement echoing throughout the hall at the moments of profound truth. You see, Mr. Thompson continued, it's not the grand gestures that define our lives, but the little acts of kindness and understanding we extend to one another. Each interaction has the potential to weave the fabric of our society. His passion blossomed as he transitioned into discussing the present. He highlighted the current issues plaguing society: prejudice, inequality, and lack of understanding. Each point he made resonated deeply, both a plea and a call to action for everyone listening. The transformation of the crowd was palpable. What began as a room filled with uncertainty shifted into an audience empowered by the words of a man whose life experiences had equipped him with immeasurable wisdom. By the end of his speech, there was a palpable energy in the air. Applause erupted like thunder, echoing through the hall as people rose to their feet. Mike, who had once dismissed Mr. Thompson as just an old man, now stood amongst them, his heart swelling with admiration and respect. Mr. Thompson smiled, his humble demeanor shining through as he took in the moment. In that instant, he knew that his stories had touched them, bridging the gap between generations and encouraging them to champion each other and challenge their biases. The speech wasn't just a conclusion, it was a beginning, a newfound understanding that every individual has a story worthy of being heard. As the echoes of applause gradually faded, Mr. Thompson had not only captivated an audience, he had ignited a movement, urging all to recognize the extraordinary within the ordinary. As Mr. Thompson steps onto the stage, a hush falls over the audience. The dim lights spotlight the elderly man, drawing all attention to him. The once skeptical faces of the attendees now exhibit curiosity and anticipation. Mr. Thompson begins by sharing a story from his past. A memory from a time when he was a young boy waiting for a bus in a small, bustling town. I was there, standing in the cold, my torn shoes barely keeping my feet warm. He recalls, his voice rich with emotion. People brushed by me, heads down, lost in their own worlds. Little did they know that I was waiting for a chance that could change our lives, a scholarship interview that could take me to college. He goes on to describe how he felt invisible, an untold story hidden beneath the layers of everyday bustle. As he speaks, his words paint a vivid picture. The audience can feel the biting cold, hear the sounds of distant chatter, and sense the loneliness that engulfed him in that moment. And then, he continues, a stranger approached me. She was an old woman with silver hair. And instead of ignoring me like everyone else, she sat beside me. She shared her stories, her dreams, and her own struggles. That simple act of kindness ignited a spark in me. I realized that each person we encounter has a story worth telling, filled with dreams, battles, and triumphs. Each participant in the audience begins to reflect. Young professionals consider their paths. Students think of the sacrifices made for education. And older attendees remember their own challenges, no matter how big or small. A sense of collective responsibility fills the room. Mr. Thompson's words resonate deeply, echoing through the hearts of many. I began to study harder, not just for myself but for those who ever felt overlooked. He says, his voice steady yet passionate. I learned that our destinies are intertwined. When we lift one another, we create a stronger collective that leads to greater change. His narrative transitions from personal experience to wider social implications. He addresses the importance of empathy in our daily lives, urging the audience to become mindful of others. Let's not just see the roles people play in our lives. Instead, let's strive to understand the circumstances that shape them. The audience hangs on every word as they witness a powerful transformation occurring within themselves. Tears glisten in the eyes of attendees, serving as a testament to the influence of his stories. By the end of his powerful message, Mr. Thompson reiterates that recognizing the extraordinary in the ordinary is a responsibility that everyone shares. As the applause erupts, it becomes clear, Mr. Thompson has not only shared his story but has ignited a flame within each individual present, the flame of awareness, compassion, and the realization that every person has worth, deserving of recognition and respect. As the final applause echoed through the grand hall, Mike, the security guard, remained at the edge of the stage, grappling with the mix of emotions swirling within him. He had spent years enforcing rules, believing that order was paramount in any event. But today he learned that strict adherence could sometimes obscure the truth. The elderly man, Mr. Thompson, had not only opened the gates to the venue but had also opened Mike's eyes to the deeper narratives that often lie hidden in the background of our daily lives. Amidst the clapping and cheers, Mike watched as Mr. Thompson beamed, clearly moved by the reception he had received. The room was alive with energy, and conversations buzzed about the newfound insights and stories shared. Students, professionals, and freelance journalists alike gathered around Mr. Thompson, eager to ask questions and learn from his well of experience. Each inquiry led to another life lesson, creating a ripple effect of inspiration. Mike's heart swelled with admiration. How many stories have I missed? He wondered, reflecting on the countless individuals he had encountered throughout his career. Each person had a narrative, each stood at the intersection of struggle and triumph. Yet he had often hastily judged them based on their appearance or background. The realization struck him profoundly. The wisdom gleaned from Mr. Thompson's experiences were not merely ideas to write down and forget, they were calls to action. Reminders to approach others with genuine curiosity and respect. As the event began to wind down, Mike approached Mr. Thompson, who was surrounded by a small crowd. With a blend of hesitation and sincerity, he cleared his throat. Mr. Thompson, I'm deeply sorry for my earlier actions. I mistakenly judged you. And in doing so, I lost out on the opportunity to hear your invaluable story. Mr. Thompson turned to him with a warm smile, one that crinkled at the corners of his eyes. It's all right, my friend, he replied gently. We all have our moments of tunnel vision. What matters is that we learn from them. Every encounter is a chance to grow and be better. In that moment, Mike felt a renewed sense of purpose. He vowed not only to improve his approach as a gatekeeper but also to become an advocate for listening to the stories of those around him. The lessons he had taken away that day resonated far beyond the conference. They were truths he would carry into every aspect of his life. As people began to leave, exchanging thoughts and sharing smiles, Mike felt a deep-seated hope for a world where everyone's narrative was heard and celebrated. The evening had transformed him, marking a new chapter not just in the story of Mr. Thompson, but in his own. Yes. Life was an intricate tapestry of experiences, each thread colorful, each story significant. From then on, He promised to treat every person he encountered not merely as a face in the crowd but as a unique storyteller waiting to unfold their tale, with a lighter heart and a mind brimming with possibilities. Mike stepped into a future filled with understanding, compassion, and the belief that stories have the power to change lives. As he bid farewell to the last attendees, he whispered a silent thank you to Mr. Thompson for being the catalyst of change, and to the world for reminding him of the extraordinary within the ordinary.